You've heard us instantly overreact. Now we're going to roundtable react. Some of the regulars that you know from the Ole Miss website or from this website, they're here to talk all about that. So it should be pretty cool. We're going to be joined by Tom Vanderford and Dids and perhaps the Dalen Flowers as well. That should be pretty good for everybody as well. But I do want to let you know, I'm Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today, we're debuting the Reaction Roundtable. It's a fresh take on breaking down the weekend's Ole Miss game, what we thought about that. The cast of characters will change from time to time, but the analysis will always be exactly what fans want. Thanks for joining us at Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, Reaction Roundtable, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Spencer McLaughlin at Locked On College Football. They provide other perspectives on the SEC and even Ole Miss. So check it out as well. So we're going to jump right into this. This is going to be new, and it might be a little bit clunky from time to time, but we are going to do this on Sundays after the Ole Miss game. And in that time, we're hoping to set it up to have like our instant overreaction that we do after the ball game, and then we let it marinate for 24 hours, and we do this. And this is an opportunity for some of the regulars that participate on the channel to actually get back in the show, because the way it works, whenever the season starts, I have less time to go. Like on Monday, it's going to be a little bit difficult because we have John Forcade like that. So Dalen Flowers is coming in here, and it should be really fun indeed as well. So we should have a lot of fun. But let's go to the reaction roundtable. We have Dalen Flowers, Derek Vandy Griff. We have Tom Vanderford right now. Yes. Okay. Dalen has unmuted himself. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing well, man.
Dalen, man, it's nice to see you. It's been a couple of weeks. It's been busy with all the camp stuff going on. I appreciate you joining us, and I'm sure everybody is going to enjoy having you back as well. It should be a lot of fun. I've got the LSU USC game on the TV. I'm sure you guys are all streaming that as well. It's fairly interesting. This was like a battle of two pretty mid football teams, if we're going to be honest.
I agree.
Yeah. So far, I kind of get the impression that Brian Kelly's not really scared of this USC defense. The going for it twice on fourth down there on that first drive, including down there at the 3-yard line.
Well, yeah, he shouldn't be afraid of them because he's basically been doing routes on air all the way down the field. I mean, they're playing 10 yards off the line, off the ball.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
looks good though.
Yeah, Dalen was at the game, and we all saw it. Besides that, so Dalen, what was the stadium experience like? Because I saw the attendance announced. It was 66,100. That's almost a record for attendance for Furman. What was it like in the stadium?
It's definitely filled up, man. I think people are just obviously excited to not only be back, but just to hype the expectation and just the national relevancy that the team has gotten over the last few months. People are excited. You know, we're excited to be back. Us coming off that 11-win season. And the atmosphere was definitely alive. You know, my first couple of years here, that first game, you know, we always kind of play that team that a lot of people don't know about. So, you know, a lot of fans aren't there after maybe the first, second quarter, even halftime. But it was still filled up past halftime. And that just shows I think the appreciation of the fans and the energy that they have for this year's football team. And it was just good to be back in general. Like, it was very live. And I think that people understood that, you know, it's going to take a lot of support from our fans as well to push this team on to get where we want to get this season.
Hey, Tom, not too long ago, as far as even last year, this game would have had at best 55,000 people in the stands. The fact that they got up over 66,000 in a 64,038 capacity stadium, That makes me think that every home game is going to sell out this year.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing us set a new attendance record for the Georgia game and possibly even the Oklahoma game. So it's going to be exciting. It's like we've been hyping it up all off season, but it's here and they are as advertised, and the fans are going to really enjoy this. And for us older fans, I'm almost 60. I've been waiting for this my whole life, so I'm going to sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool for everyone, and we'll see exactly how that goes. And Derek, you saw the game and the atmosphere and everything. Ole Miss has done a really good job of the in-game atmosphere in the last couple of years. They've really ramped that up to the point where last season it was pretty good, but this season it looks like it's going to be a new level.
Yeah, with the evolution of TV and being able to watch every game from your couch, you have to get innovative and make the in-game experience more exciting to draw those fans to keep getting them back into the stadium, right? So they've done a really good job of that. They've done it for the last several years, trying to find different things to do to keep it entertaining for people inside the stadium. Looks like they've done it again this year. Kind of building off of Tom's point there with the new attendance records against, Georgia and Oklahoma. Man, if we're getting over 66,000 for Furman, we might set that attendance record come the Kentucky game, because people are going to be fired up to see an SEC team rolling into the vault for the first time this year. So we may just start breaking that record a few times over and over and over again.
Yeah, and if Furman had 66,100 or some change in the stadium, I have to think that there's a chance the Georgia game gets over 70,000. I didn't think that was possible going into the season, but I think 70,000 is on the table.
Well, yeah, if they're allowed to fit that many people in the stadium, if they don't shut them down beforehand. But if they're going to let people in, I can guarantee you Ole Miss will keep selling tickets.
Yeah. And Tom, the game that you saw, what's the thing that stood out to you of the actual football that was played that day?
Well, there's an old saying, and we've all heard it. Offense sells tickets and defense wins championships. I loved watching that defense.
Yeah. Tomorrow's video, for people that are watching this right now, tomorrow's Locked On Ole Miss podcast is about how the defense kind of stole the show from what was a generational performance from Jaxson Dart. But that defense is kind of the talk of the fan base today. Dalen, what was your notice in the stadium? What stood out to you?
Jaxson Dart. And I say Jaxson Dart not just by his play, but after he was taken out in the second half, every single time we scored a touchdown, he was on the field running down to congratulate his teammates, to shoulder bump his teammates, to high five them, and just kind of be around them and make sure they knew that even though I'm not out there right now, I'm still a part of this team and I'm still the leader that you guys need me to be. We heard it so much this offseason from Lane, I even heard it from Pete Golding in a few press conferences. He really took the leadership role over in terms of making sure we were getting a lot of guys back from last year's team, just kind of recruiting in the transfer portal, make sure we were targeting a lot of guys and contacted those guys really well to make sure they were coming here to Oxford. He took over this season because he knew what was at stake for his career and for this team's career, and what could be a national championship hope for this season. He took over, and I saw that on and off the field last night. He just looked to be really confident in what the team could do, even when he wasn't on the field. And as well, some of the things over the last 2 years that he, kind of struggled with was deep field reads, but he was dotting the deep balls up really well last night. I mean, just pure excellence, throwing the ball deep downfield, and he just looked comfortable doing it. And as well, it was without Jordan Watkins. And for me, Jordan is always, to me, in my opinion, like that deep ball threat, and he can just really run past anybody, and he's kind of forgotten when other people are looking at different receivers on our team. He did all of this last night without Jordan Watkins, so I think can really free up that offense a little bit more. So that is what excites me a lot as well.
Before we move on, somebody in the question in the chat says we were 6 going into the weekend. Now they are listening us at 8, and they're talking about ESPN. That's the ESPN FPI. And going into this weekend, Ole Miss was like 14th in the ESPN FBI.
Mm-hmm.
So Ole Miss went up 6 places in the FBI. They're still number 6 in the coaches poll and the AP as well. So, Derek, real quick, what stood out to you in this football game?
Yeah, same thing that I've talked about all offseason leading up to this thing, ready for it to get kicked off. It's the depth of this team, right? That's what separates this team from every other Ole Miss team we've seen in the past. We've seen some teams that have star power on it, right? Whether it be DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, going back to the Kim Deechees and Tony Connor and those guys with Treadwell and Bo Wallace, Chad Kelly. We've always had elite talent up at the top. You've got to have guys behind them that can come in and can make plays that can let you last 4 quarters. And that's what I wanted to see. That's what we saw this past weekend. And you saw it on both lines of scrimmage. That's where you really have to have it. Defensive line, offensive line. We played a ton of guys. Cam Franklin came in, got his first sack of his collegiate career, highly decorated high school player. 1.5, I think it was the official one, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was really great job by them. You got Will Eccles in the game. Thought he played really well.
Yes.
And then Jerquan Scott, he came in. It was a lot of talk about him being banged up, but saw him play a good bit of center for us as well too. You need those guys that are going to come in, give these guys breathers, get some depth on this team, especially those 2 lines of scrimmage. That way you can win these 4-quarter battles that you're inevitably going to be in throughout the year, whether it be against Kentucky, South Carolina, of course, LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, those guys. So we need as many guys as we can that can play. And you saw it from the receiver position as well. Caden Lee had another really good game. Freshman Norrell White came in, had a couple catches. Aiden Williams had a couple catches. And we all know what Trey Harris and Juice Wells are going to do. And plus Jordan Watkins when he finally gets back. Pre-scoring, Daquan Wright, Wright gets into the end zone there, and pre-scoring has the big catch. There's just guys all over the place with this team, so the depth is what stood out to me.
Tom, what did you notice from this game? What's besides the defense? Because I know you're going to talk about the defense, but what stood out to you in this game?
Well, it's already been touched on. And we've been talking about it all off season, but the depth. In years past, even against FCS teams, as we started filling in towards the end of the game with second and third teamers on offense and defense, there was quite a drop-off of talent. I didn't see that last night. I saw really good defensive play throughout the game. I saw really good offensive depth. I think our 4th string running back looked really, really, really good,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing that depth along the offensive line and defensive line, there's that old saying, and I've said it before, defense will win championships, offense will sell tickets.
Hey, we got Brad and Logan here as well. We'll bring Brad in right now. Change it over. Brad, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. It was some kind of game yesterday. Yeah. How's everybody doing, by the way?
We're doing quite
good,
well.
Bud.
Quite well.
I'm good, man.
Real quick, I just want to jump in. I took a lot from the game. And not just because of the score, but I think what was interesting to me is what did the offense look like when it was, 60 some odd to nothing. A couple of things that jumped out to me was wide receiver Norrell White. I like seeing players that are young that take the most of their opportunity and seize it. I thought he did a great job. I was really impressed with the transfer, Julius Buello out of Washington. I thought he played really well. I thought there were some blemishes with that offensive front. For the most part, Lane admitted, when the media corps asked about why Jaxson Dart looked so much better than he did last year, he just kind of tilted his head and said, "Did you see the pocket that he was throwing from?" And for the most part, he had a really nice pocket all night. There were a couple of breakdowns, but other than that, you'll remember Reese McIntyre was the center last night. I don't think he'll be the center going forward. I think Caleb Warren will. There were some other injuries across that offensive front. So I was just pretty much impressed there. Running back, we saw what we were going to get. Maybe a little disappointed we didn't see more of Amos, the running back. I don't know if maybe he's not grasped the offense quite as well as people would have thought at this point. But limited carries, so we'll see from that standpoint. Wide receiver loaded. Daquan Wright at tight end. I posted on the board that Ole Miss has a starting 11 on offense, and then there are about 8 more people that are starters that just can't play because there's only 11 slots. That's about the easiest way for me to put it. When you start talking about the extra running back, the extra 2 or 3 offensive linemen, the extra 2 receivers, the extra tight end, and I'm watching LSU right now. I don't know. I mean, this is an incredibly talented team, and I just talked about offense. I don't want to get take up too much time, but the offense was incredible.
The one thing that I am interesting about, and this offense has a chance, in my opinion, to be real similar to what 2019 LSU was, that kind of an elite offense. But the running back position, you have to find that Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I am wondering after this first game, and this is one of the questions that popped after the first game, how much of a role will we get from Matt Jones moving forward? Because I think that guy's earned a little bit more playing time.
Yeah, on the media call today, he being Lane Kiffin said that Matt Jones was on the service team, and he's been through the highs and lows of this team. Everybody on this call knows that Matt Jones has been through the ups and downs, and Lane admitted today that he will be a significant part of this offense. And when Lane said that, I'm not surprised. Everyone saw how hard he ran with the football yesterday. I think he's a legitimate shot of being the number 3 running back, and that's from number 6. He's already worked himself up. We'll see where Amos is. I don't think we can really, gauge where everything is at this point, but I do think there'll be a spot for him. And real quick before we go too far, the defensive line for Ole Miss is the deepest it's ever been. I'll take it and say it's better than the class with Kimdichie. It's better than the 93 Norman Hand, Tim Bowen's class. I rewatched the game this morning or this afternoon, and I mean, I haven't seen a defensive front. I encourage everyone to go back and watch J.J. Pegues, for example. Watch Walter Nolan. Watch the way they swim. Watch the way that they break away from would-be blockers. And once again, I think people make a little too much that it's Furman. I get it. I'm judging this as if I were watching a scrimmage on Saturday prior to the game, to the seasons, and watching them swim with their right and left arms, watching them spin, and watching the linebackers run free. We didn't see a lot of Chris Pupal until later, and I think a lot of that is because of the way that Corey Coleman's been playing, the way that T.J. Daugherty, who, by the way, is the captain on the defense. Nobody hasn't talked about that. He's got the green dot on his helmet. There's so much talent on this team. And I think until I saw that Saturday, until I started, talking to people around me, like, it is an incredible amount of talent on this team. And it's just, it was fun to watch it all come together. And even Lane admitted in the press conference, he didn't have anything bad to say. I've never been in a Lane press conference when he wasn't complaining about something. But he really had nothing to complain about other than a couple of busts, and that's to be, I think, expected from a transfer-laden defense in the first game of the year. Other than maybe 2 or 3 busts at corner, it was a pretty flawless defensive effort.
Yeah, you talk about those busts. Over the course of the game, Furman had about 160 yards of offense in that ballpark, and if you look at it, it was 3 busted coverages that were accounted for about 90 to 110 of that yards. 3 big plays early in the game and 2 running plays at the end of the game. And that is 90% of the offense Furman got in that game.
Hey, and I'll ask the rest of you. I mean, you guys, some of you more seasoned than I am. Some of you are less seasoned than I am. Can you name a defense that looks better than this? Just now that all offseason. See, it feels like this offseason has been going on for 3 years. So we finally played a game yesterday. Now that you've seen them, and I think objectively we can look at this team and look at Ole Miss without looking so much at Furman. We've heard everybody talk about how good they look on paper. To me, I saw all I needed to see in regards to I'm happy with what I've seen. Now, obviously, I would like to see the competition ramp up. That'll happen soon enough. When is the last time Ole Miss had this much talent that you've seen on the field?
Not in my lifetime.
Well, guys, I'll be 59 in February, Brad. And I have never seen an Ole Miss defense this deep and this talented. There are future NFL players all over our defense. In the 3 deep. So, yeah, to answer your question, NIL has been good to Ole Miss. And the fact that Lane treats the portal like free agency and signing day like the draft, we're extremely fortunate to have him and his staff. This is wonderful for an old rebel like me.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Dids, this offense under Lane Kiffin has been 60% run the whole time. That's been the minimum of what has been. But against Furman in that opener, and a lot of this could be the fact that Furman had to replace several defensive backs and the secondary was going to be able to be exploited. But it was 45% run as opposed to 60% run. Do you think that was game plan? Do you think that is the fact that the wide receivers and Jaxson Dart are the best part of this team?
Well, probably a little bit of both. I think you can probably attribute a little bit of that to Lane Kiffin kicking off the Jaxson Dart for Heisman campaign in week 1, 2, right? He knew he wasn't going to be in there very long. He wanted to make sure that he got his stats along with Trey Harris. They were going to sling it around a little bit in the first half. And then when you get Austin Simmons in the second half, you don't want him to come in and just hand the ball off. You need him to get some reps and start getting, some looks downfield, throwing the ball a little bit. So they did that along with Walker Howard later on in the game as well. So you saw passes from all 3 quarterbacks, but I do think it was a concerted effort from the staff and probably a little bit of what Furman was doing as well. As you know, this offense is built on RPOs, right? There's a lot of reads going on. There's basically a run with every pass and vice versa when a play is called. And, maybe Dart and those guys read something on that defense, or probably Charlie Weiss said something in that headset pre-snap like, hey, watch that safety back there. You might want to pull this one and sling this one downfield or something. Probably a little bit of that went into it as well. So probably overall it's a big mixture of things. But you're right, this has always been a run-heavy team. Lane Kiffin's always ran the ball. It's always been the biggest misconception of him with every team he's ever had, that he just wants to go out there and sling the ball all over the field. Now, if you let Lane Kiffin sit there and run the ball down your throat all game long, he'll be more than happy to do it. But, yeah, this was a little bit different on Saturday.
Dalen, you were in the stadium Saturday, and you got to see Austin Simmons, who won the backup quarterback position. His first pass at Ole Miss was a touchdown. And I tell you what, he throws a pretty pass.
He does. He looked confident in what he was doing. I know everything is not going to come second nature automatically for Austin, but I was glad to see him out there because we obviously had heard so much from a lot of different sources this offseason that he had that opportunity to maybe go into touching that second string role a little bit more. And so to see him out there caught me by surprise a little bit, but I was glad because I think he had deserved that role. We'd heard high things, not in just in terms of his ability as well, but a little bit of his leadership role as well has been talked about this offseason. And so I was glad to see Austin out there. And Austin looked well, not just throwing the ball, but his footwork and mechanics in the pocket looked well. He knew when to get out the pocket, and if he needed to scramble to get up the yards, up the field a little bit, he did. He knew when to get down and not take tackles if he needed to. He looked like he had a lot of experience for a guy that has not had much experience in real play time. And that mechanics in terms of just making the right passes will come with more and more experience that he will get later on down.
Yeah, it was really cool. And if anybody followed the podcast over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the backup quarterback job pretty consistently. And after the mock game, it came out and I got a little bit of information. I couldn't talk about it, of course, but I kind of got an inkling that he was going to be the backup quarterback after the mock game. Brad, JJ Pegues got back-to-back carries, scored a touchdown, changed hands, cut back, all of that stuff. It was a good moment for JJ Pegues, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty much unblockable on defense. You know, I didn't realize how dominant he was until I rewatched the game today. And watching Walter Nolan, and my goodness, Prince Umanielen. I mean, what do you say? I mean, it's just they come from all over the place. Akilo Stone played well. That's a name we haven't talked a ton about. But Cam Franklin came in and played well. William Eccles, a lot of
Jim Brown.
Players. Yes.
Yeah.
One thing too, Stephen, I want to add. A moment ago, you talked about the secondary of Furman. A lot of players were out. I'll say this, and then I've taken a little kickback on social media, but some of those passes by Jaxson Dart, I don't care if they were covered or not. I mean, the receivers were running in stride, and all they did was put their hand down. The ball fell in it. And to Dalen's point, I thought Austin Simmons looked incredible. I mean, people ask what the future going to be like. We saw it. He is as smooth as silk. I mean, I'm not going to put him into the Tua category just yet. I want to see him run it a little bit. But I hope Mike Bianco's not watching or listening to this, but he doesn't know how to throw a baseball again. No. His future is running quarterback for Ole Miss. I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because, I mean, if you've got a left-handed guy that can throw like he can from the mound, he may have a really good future in baseball. But selfishly, I'd love to see him run quarterback for Ole Miss next year. Anyway, back to your point. I thought JJ, what an ambassador for the program. Someone that went to Auburn, was unhappy, came back home, and is now, when you look up Ole Miss football in the dictionary, there's a picture of JJ Pegues. A hometown guy and someone that loves the program. I tweeted out, I was on the sideline and tweeted out a picture where he walked over and he was just hugging families. They're like, JJ, can I have a hug? And I mean, it only lasted about 30 seconds, but he didn't have to do that. I mean, he was signing autographs and hugging people and taking pictures and not to go down the road of race and that sort of thing, but race doesn't matter to JJ. I mean, it didn't matter if it was a white family, a black family, Hispanic family. They wore an Ole Miss shirt and they were all Ole Miss Rebels. And that's what I love about JJ. He encompasses everything to me it is to be an Ole Miss Rebel. And yeah, I mean, I love seeing that. It almost felt like we had the old school. What was the guy's name? 15, Jeremy Liggins. Except
Jeremy Liggins, big league.
No disrespect to Jeremy Liggins, but he's a lot better athlete, I think, than Jeremy. And I think JJ is just yet another story that we're going to tell at the end of the year about this team. And quite frankly, this is a team to where, Stephen, I've said on your show, I felt they were going 10-2. Judging by what we're seeing out of LSU right now, if Ole Miss, and I picked Ole Miss to go to LSU and win. If that happens and Georgia's a playoff game, Ole Miss is 11-1 and going to Atlanta. That is a very elite place, not Atlanta, but a very elite place for Ole Miss football to be. And if things continue like I think they can continue, this is going to be the most special season in Ole Miss football history.
Yeah, just overreacting a little bit. I'm watching the LSU game. Winning down in Tiger Stadium at this point is not something that I'm putting outside the realm of possibility.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, when that Sharman ultra soft defense of USC is being able to stop that LSU vaunted offense, I think the Ole Miss defense is going to be.
And look, y'all may agree or disagree. I've got to see something out of Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, last year we saw Jaden Daniels come to Oxford and single-handedly, along with Malik Neighbors and a couple of receivers, but essentially single-handedly almost beat Ole Miss. So I have not seen anything out of Nussmeier that has changed my mind to where he's a meddling. He's a middle-of-the-road quarterback. He may turn it on tonight. He may turn it on down the road, but we'll see. I think the jury is still out on LSU.
They won 10 games with Jaden Daniels. If they did not have Jaden Daniels, they go 7-5. They're playing in the Music City Bowl without him last year.
At best.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's crazy. Let's talk about the games, the other ones that happened this weekend. Vanderbilt I've been calling Vanderbilt for weeks. I've been talking about this game. I even brought it up on the national Locked On show, and everybody kind of slapped me down a little bit.
Yeah.
I am so happy. Diego Pavia, this guy, the over was free money to anybody that wanted to take it.
Yeah. I know me and you have talked a few times about Diego Pavia, Stephen. That's one guy that I followed a good bit last year at New Mexico State. Came out and really played a good game against Virginia Tech on our show this past week. Hitch actually took them on the money line to win outright. That was his plus money play on Wednesday, calling for the Vanderbilt upset. That was just a really fun and cool game to watch. Obviously, not a Vanderbilt fan, have no ties there. But, man, they've been so bad for so long. I couldn't help but find myself being happy for them, right? Like, you actually have this moment. You've got this Power 4 Virginia Tech team that a lot of people really liked that thought could be a sleeper in the ACC. And they come into Nashville. They sell out that game. And then they just play this incredible game. Diego Pavia was incredible. That running back, I can't remember his name, but he played a well of a game for Vanderbilt as well. And got a little hairy there at the end. Got really hairy there at the end. They kind of gave up the lead. But I thought they would have gone for 2 there in regulation to win it. Didn't think they needed to go to overtime. But they kicked the extra point, go to overtime, punch it in. Defense stands up. Just a really cool moment for Clark Lee in that program, I thought.
Yeah, really cool. Dalen, G5 Billy Napier down at Florida did not have a good Saturday.
Yeah, it wasn't fun for Florida fans. This goes against my SEC ties, but I was really excited for Miami. I'm a really big Cam Moore fan, and I watched him a lot at Washington State this past season, and to see him be able to go down to the Swamp, which is one of the most difficult places to play in the country, to see him to go down there. And he said in his post-game press conference, this was the most confident he's ever felt playing football. And to say that in your first game in the SEC is saying something. So to see him go down there and just make plays happen, man. A lot of the things that happened, he had to make happen on his own 2 legs and his own arm, and he made them happen himself. So I was excited to see Cam Moore go out there and thrive. But it's going to be a long year for Florida fans. I honestly, and I believe this, I don't think Florida has that bad of a roster. I just don't think they've put the pieces together well enough to be successful. And as well, I think they have the toughest schedule in the country, and it's only going to continue to get worse for them once SEC play starts. So it's going to be a long year for Gator fans. But I think if they can scramble along a few wins, they'll be okay. But it's going to be a long year, definitely, because they have a lot of strides to get through before conference play even starts.
Tom, the Georgia-Clemson game was interesting, and it kind of happened exactly like we thought it would. I'm not willing to say that Clemson necessarily is a fraud, but they kind of have fraud tendencies at this point.
Well, we've seen instances in the past of coaches refusing to adapt. And I put it squarely on Dabo's shoulders. He has refused to adapt to the new NIL landscape, and it's showing. But don't be confused here. The Georgia's a very, very good football team. So but that was a dominant showing. But I will tell you right now, I like our chances, probably the only one on this panel, but I like our chances if we stay healthy with Georgia in Oxford.
Should be interesting, especially if they just keep getting players suspended. Hey, Brad, Notre Dame and Texas A&M, it was the game of the night in College Station. Notre Dame kind of made Texas A&M continue to do the things that Texas A&M does. Or as I call them, Texas 8-4. But it's a situation. Notre Dame is in a great shape to make a playoff run now, which is kind of bad news for Ole Miss and other programs like that are fighting for the at-larges. But Notre Dame looks like a decent team. Connor Weigman at quarterback, something's wrong. He's regressed.
Yeah. If anybody that looks at Notre Dame's schedule, it's not much to it. That was kind of their biggest test. So I think Notre Dame got a pretty much a golden path into the college football playoff. I'll be honest, I was kind of pulling for Notre Dame. I'm not a huge A&M fan for a lot of reasons, but I do think Mike Elko is going to turn it around. I do think Mike Elko is a really good football coach. I think once he gets his guys in there, I think he'll kind of turn some things around. I like Marcus Freeman a lot. I think he's a really good defensive coach. If he could surround himself with some offensive coaches and some, see what type of offensive philosophy he's got, I think Marcus will do well at Notre Dame. I was pulling for Notre Dame. I would love to have Notre Dame and Ole Miss in Oxford for a playoff game. I think that would be fun. A lot of people have said Ole Miss and Memphis. That would not be fun. I think I'd rather have a root canal than have Memphis come to Oxford and face Ole Miss in a playoff game. But you talk about the A&M game. To me, that was a great opportunity. There were 107,000, the most fans ever, and they lose. And so that's a great opportunity for Texas A&M. And, Texas 8-4 has a pretty good ring to it. And, they had that opportunity. Guys, I'm about to say goodbye. Appreciate it. We'll talk to everybody soon, okay?
All right. Thank you, Brad. Take care.
Have a good one, Brad.
All right. So, all right, before we get out of here tonight, we're going to talk about the next game. And the betting line came out for the Middle Tennessee State Ole Miss game. Ole Miss is a 39.5-point favorite. The over-under is sitting at 62.5. Dids, tell me, bud, what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with the way the offense ran this past weekend, I don't see how you could do anything besides take the 39.5 right there for the Rebels. You got to think we're going to put up 40. And again, with this defense, I'm not sure Middle Tennessee is going to be able to do much on their side of the ball to keep Ole Miss from covering that spread. Really liked what Brad said about JJ, how dominant he was up front. That's one thing we talked about in the offseason as well, with the additions of Nolan and Uman Mielen, and you still have Ivy coming back. That opens up Ivy and Pegues to really cause havoc with one-on-one matchups, right? Because you're paying attention to the other guys. And when you have that many guys up front, it's just hard to determine who you're going to block. So I'll take Ole Miss here, the minus 39.5. I saw you pop it up earlier as soon as I hopped on, and I thought, man, I can't believe that's not, 44.5, 45, something like that. So once I saw it was under 40, I started scrolling through my phone over here and tried to find it on my site so I can go ahead and lock that sucker in.
Dalen, MTSU this weekend, they played Tennessee Tech, an FCS opponent. They needed to score a touchdown with 15 seconds to go in the game to win it. They won the game 32-25. I think this honestly might be a situation where Furman and Middle Tennessee played. It could be an upset alert for Furman.
Yeah, I think that develops going throughout the season. I think Middle Tennessee has a little bit more of depth than I'm sure Furman does. So we'll see how that game goes out for them. And I think for us, I want to see how that offensive line continues to look. And there's going to be a lot of moving pieces within injuries and if who's going to start here, who's going to start where. So I want to see how that offensive line looks in, because I think that's going to develop a little bit more of our running game. I know we've talked about that, just kind of see who goes into where and what plays into what. Like I think Brad talked about earlier, I really like to see Mac Jones play yesterday. He looked really good. Like I thought he just looked very poised in the offense. And I think the guys kind of huddled around him really well. And I'll say this being there too, a lot of the fans were excited to see him. They were really excited to see Matt out there, and they supported him really well. So I hope that we can continue to see Matt out there a little bit more. He did a lot of things well, not just running the football. He blocked really well for Jaxson Dart. He made some significant open field abilities to just kind of spread the offense out as well. So Matt looked really well, and I'm happy to see him kind of get more of an opportunity to play yesterday.
And Tom, what are your thoughts on the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders?
Well, I'm shocked that if I'm not a betting person, but if we score more than 40, people that place the bet win, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the over under was what, 63?
Something like 62, I think.
Yeah,
It's 2.5.
Middle Tennessee State is not going to score 20 points on us. Period. It's not going to happen. I would be surprised if they scored more than 10 points against Ole Miss.
And remember, the Derek Mason system is different. If you go from a spread to the Derek Mason stuff, it takes some time. If you remember what that first year was at Vanderbilt for Derek Mason, when he had those James Franklin players, as good as they were under Franklin, they were not good under Derek Mason, because all of that stuff that Stanford does requires a different type player. So it all depends on whether or not Middle Tennessee has enough of the guys to do exactly what he wants to do, or else it could get ugly fairly quickly again.
Oh, I agree. Guys, don't get me wrong. I know Middle Tennessee went down to Miami last year and won, but I'm telling you right now, this team that we have, this defense is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. I have no problem with it. Any last thoughts, Dalen? What's your last thoughts today?
I want to see how our special team is going to look against Middle Tennessee. I feel like the special teams, this is the time right now to feel things out, kind of see how, who we're going to figure out is kind of be that punt and kickoff returner right now. Right now to kind of figure out maybe who may help Jordan Watkins before he comes back, who may, take that role over permanently if he does comes back. And I want to see Frazier Mason kind of just thrive a little bit more. I know this is not something, you just talk about, but I think punting is a really big thing, and especially in just trying to put other teams in bad field positions. I saw him yesterday, and I thought we could improve in that room. I think we could do better there. So just against special teams, I think that would be really important for us to kind of move forward and hopefully work on going throughout the coming weeks.
All right, Tom, what's your last take?
Well, I kind of agree with Dalen. We need to really look at our punting game. We did miss a field goal. And so special teams can win a lot of games when we start playing the Georgias and the LSUs and the Oklahomas. But what my last thing I want to say is, please, for everybody that's watching, get out and support these Rebels. This is the best team we've had in my lifetime.
All right, Dids, final thoughts.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Number one, cover the 39.5 next week. So Lane Kiffin, I know you're watching and listening. You're a big fan of the show, obviously. Go out there, cover that 39.5 for me next week, and keep people healthy, right? Keep getting Jordan Watkins healthier, getting Caleb Warren healthier, start working on these guys, getting these guys back. And then also don't get anybody hurt next week. That's all I want. We're going to go out there. We're going to handle business. Shouldn't be too hard for the Rebels. So go cover the line, get out of there healthy, and let's move on to Winston-Salem the following weekend.
All right. Thanks to my panelists who came on today. This has been the Reaction Roundtable, where we live stream every Sunday night to talk about the last week's game. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Take care. And tomorrow morning, we'll tell you what we learned in the game this weekend. Take care, everyone.